Killer Mike's new album is really, really good. It is, it takes Killer Mike got to be like 45. He's older. And so like, that I have this video idea that I'm gonna do eventually called The Politics of Dad Rap. And there's this really cool thing that's been happening over the last decade, probably started with 444 with Jay-Z, where all these like significant, influential, older rappers are making rap albums that fit the phase in life that a lot of, older millennial Gen X hip hop fans are in. They're talking about family. They're talking about loss. They're talking about health. They're talking about just all these growth, children, like things that like when you first encounter hip hop 20 years ago in the early 2000s and in the mid 90s, like it was hype, it was gangster rap, it was shiny suit rap, it was the crunk and bling era, Busta Rhymes' last album, like a bunch of these Nas albums, and so this album fits very much into that dad rap mode, and it's also the sounds are different. So Killer Mike's, I'm a OG Killer Mike fan, like way back with Action and Monster when he was still running around with Outkast and the Dungeon Family. So Killer Mike has had 3 careers. He starts out with Dungeon Family and Outkast as like the first artist of whatever. I don't remember the whole details, but he was like their first artist. He had this song called Action, which was like this huge hit. I never forget like strolling to that in undergrad. I actually met Killer Mike at a CD like event I used to work at Peppermint Music in West End Mall in undergrad, and he came through. It's cool dude. This is 20 years ago now. So, this is a younger Mike, right? And a younger me. And I don't know the full details of what happened with Dungeon Family and Purple Ribbon and all of that. But after his first album, his first album wasn't all that great. Nobody really remembers it. He went independent. And that's Killer Mike's second career. And that's when Killer Mike started to become Killer Mike, your favorite rapper's rapper. That's where I think a big part of his core fan base was born, because that's when you get Reagan. That's when you put the pressure on him. That's when you get Ric Flair. He came up with 3 albums independently, and this is before independent music had hit its like current state, right? He put out "Our Presidents to the Grind" 1, 2, and 3. He started Grind Time. He started his own label, Grind Time. To me, that was my favorite. That's my favorite era of Killer Mike. And then randomly, he connected with LP. LP is the greatest white rapper of all time. Whenever I get to the white rapper video, I will explain. But LP is the greatest white rapper, the greatest white figure in hip hop history, in my opinion. And somehow LP produced Killer Mike's his fifth album, RAP Music. This is where most of y'all met Killer Mike, right? This is where he became a superstar, like overall, okay? Was rap music, RAP. And it was because LP has a sound that white hip hop fan, like the hardcore hip hop nerds who tend to be white, like just perfectly, like they love that. They love that sound. At the same time, LP was able to like make bangers that still worked with the Atlanta trap, that early trap era, before trap became like all Young Thug, whatever. Right. That's Anthony Fantano. Shout out to Anthony Fantano. Anthony Fantano, I'm sure he heard Killer Mike's old stuff. Anthony Fantano's fan base became a big Killer Mike fan with rap music, RAP music. And so that starts Killer Mike's third era, the Run the Jewels era. So rap music is an amazing album. It treads the lines perfectly. between like this, like, you know, hip hop nerd sound and aesthetic, but also like just hardcore, dirty South, trunk rattling, a black ski mask, black Air Force energy, right? We'll get to it. We're gonna get to NRA spokesperson. Now, give me a second, because we're doing the music now. Because the conversation I want to have is like, who the fuck is Killer Mike for real? Which person that we've known for the last 20 years is the real Killer Mike, right? So even in, and then after RAP music, after rap music, we get the Run the Jewels 1 through 4, which is probably one of the best runs of any hip hop group ever. And even though he started being more overtly political, anti-establishment, and arguably leftist in the I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind era, the Run the Jewels era is where that became very significant, is where it rolls to the forefront. That's where he starts riding for Bernie Sanders, you know, just all this stuff, right? But if we're fair to Killer Mike, the whole time, Killer Mike has been very much a pro-black centrist. And we just gave him more credit than he really earned in that regard. Lyrically, Killer Mike's anti-establishment content, Kill Your Masters, Reagan, all of that stuff, it's understandable why we adopted Mike to be this radical figure. But the whole time, Mike has also just been a rapper. If you're frustrated with me giving a lot of props to his music and to like not being like the most angry, like for all the people I've thrown shade at, like Killer Mike's Pull Your Pants Up take a little while ago bothered me, but that was actually something that went viral after being out for years. Conflict resolution, Michael. So when Michael in 2020, when Mike stood in front of Atlanta and said stop rioting, I didn't take a lot of issue with it, because the reality is Killer Mike is a rich rapper, and I don't expect successful rappers to be revolutionaries. I think we spend too much time and energy trying to dictate goodness through media consumption, through consumption, period. I think that's a really, I just find that to be a dead end discourse. Because it just comes down to like, it's impossible to be logically consistent. It's impossible to be consistent in general. So you do what you want with the Killer Mike album. I enjoy it a lot. That said, I want to get to the contradictions and like break down the critique that I have of Killer Mike and why I want people to like, not so much like do what you will with it, but recognize why more left-leaning people have the issue with Killer Mike that they have. So he has a song on this new album. He has several bars in this song. This song is a perfect distillation of like the conflict of a Killer Mike. Oh man, I have to. So here's the lyric, a lyric straight from In Rich. So In Rich is, I think, Killer Mike's political ethos and all the problems that we have with Killer Mike, like personified in a really good song. He says in the song, I open Greenwood to show niggas that we is more than sticking green under the beams in mama's wooden floor. And I know some secrets that Negro leaders will never know. I was in cahoots with spooks that sat by the door. Right? So there's so much going on there. So I want to break this down part by part. He says, I opened Greenwood Bank to show niggas that we more than selling drugs, et cetera, et cetera. So if you watch the Black Conservatives video, I talk about Killer Mike and Greenwood Bank for maybe 5-10 minutes in the hour and a half long video. And that whole section, the point of that section is to point out the folly of the conceit of this entire song, In Rich, which I'm assuming stands for Negro rich or Nouveau rich or nigger rich, which is this ethos of Black excellence, that what Black people need to do to fix our reality in this country is to amass wealth, and that Black capitalism and the amassment of Black wealth will allow us to, will fix all our problems, right? Let me go back to the rest of the history. I'm going to go to the chorus. The chorus goes like this: run up the millions, then build a village, then make your own rules. Fuck what they told you. Don't let them own you, right? This sentiment is extremely seductive to Black political and social ethos, especially to Black people of privilege, the Black bourgeoisie, the talented 10th, all my homies that graduated HBCUs, all my homies in HBCUs right now, every nigga that was, you know, one of the good ones, right? But shout out to you and you. You still a mod, right? Just making sure. Dang, why is this chat acting so ridiculous? Okay, cool. But that's not how this shit works. It's not. You know, that's not how it works. When Killer Mike becoming a millionaire does not have a very strong does not materially change the reality for Black people. And the reality of capitalism is that everybody can't be a millionaire. In fact, the design of capitalism explicitly requires a set amount of people to be poor. And the added spice of structural systemic racism and white supremacy in America means that by design, the vast majority of poor people in this country will be Black to a disproportionate amount, I should say. A disproportionate amount of poor people in this country will be Black. That is our role in capitalism. So you can bootstraps, build up your millions, get you an LLC, all you want to niggas. You will not change that reality for most Black people. Right? Now, this doesn't mean, and this is a critique that I want to be clear about. This doesn't mean when I sit down with my sons, when I sit down with my sons' friends, when I was teaching, if I ever go back to teaching or doing the lectures or whatever, if I'm talking to young Black people and I'm trying to explain to them how to take care of themselves, I will say, you know, take care of your finances best you can. Try to save your money, yada, yada, yada. In private, direct conversation. But you are never going to see the get you an LLC video from FD Signifier. Because the reality is, if I'm talking to a crowd of 100 young Black people, me telling them all how to get their finances in order is only really going to be useful to 5 of them. So the other thing I'm going to say is, you all should think about organizing. Have you thought about building a union? Have you joined your local political organizing campaign? Have you heard about what's going on in Cop City in Atlanta? You know what I'm saying? Like, the advice of do good in capitalism is not good advice. It's not good advice, one, because it doesn't really do anything. Like nobody doesn't know that. Nobody walks outside and says, I wonder if I can survive capitalism by not being good at it. Nobody doesn't know that shit. That's why whenever that shit is said publicly, it pisses me off, because it insinuates that Black people don't know this shit already. Any African-American young person that's been in the school assembly in the last 15 years has heard the do good at capitalism speech, right? And it's not even honest advice. There's much better advice we can give, but I can't talk about it on YouTube. So, but further, the idea that if a bunch of Black people become millionaires, that they can collect together and advocate for Black issues politically is also just statistically not true. It's historically not true and statistically impossible. Historically, when anybody has gotten money, collectively as a population, they tend to self-segregate. That's the reality. I showed the video in the Black Conservatives video about the Black folks in LA in the 60s and 70s that got their little money, moved to Los Angeles, and then tried to create barriers between them and the Black proletariat, their Black peers that they escaped from. And I can tell you now, having been a part of the Black, let me be clear, let me be real, being a part of the Black bourgeoisie, having been in school functions and dinners and game nights and shit with other bougie Negroes, well-educated Negroes, moneyed Negroes, I can tell you that the way a lot of niggas talk about their cousins from the other side of town, it's not revolutionary. It's not class solidarity. It's not. So even if like I'm pro reparations, but like I wouldn't be pro reparations right now, because the niggas they would give reparations to would sell the rest of us out so quick and then tell us they did it right. Like I could not, whoever would be in position to control and get reparations for Black people right now, the way our class consciousness is set up as a people, I'll be like, no, we're gonna wait for that. Let us organize a little more. Let us get our political education up a little more. Reparations in the 60s would have been dope, when Black people were on a much more left, collective, anti-capitalist bend 60 years ago. Reparations would have been dope. Right now, earn your leisure niggas, LLC niggas, soft life niggas, I wouldn't trust none of these niggas with reparations. Not in terms of like they're gonna waste their money, but they're gonna fuck the rest of Black folks over. How do we fix that? We fix that through political education. But again, like I ain't here to do that right now. So that's number one, is I don't trust super rich niggas to do right by Black people, because we see historically that they don't. They do okay by Black people. But if you are a Black college graduate and you've been at an HBCU cookout, whatever, just put an antenna up for the anti-Blackness that you'll hear. Put an antenna up for it. Put an antenna up for how non-Black educated lumpen proletariat type Black folks are regarded and treated. So that's number one, is that I don't have trust in the Black bourgeoisie, the talented tip, to really do that. The second thing is, again, shout out to Jared Ball at Black Power Media. So Dr. Ball wrote a book. It's called The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. It's short as hell. It's simple. It's less than 100 pages. It's less than 120 pages. And the whole book is dedicated to just breaking down logistically. He doesn't even spend a whole lot of time getting into like the philosophy of it, like all the arguments I just made. Just logistically, why this whole buy back the block, stack up your millions ethos is not a revolutionary agenda. It's not worthy of a revolutionary agenda. It'll help a few niggas. Please believe I'm trying to figure out how to stack my money and protect myself from capitalism. I am. All right. I might open a business. I'm not going to be a landlord. I'm not buying an apartment building, right? But I may figure out how to run some trucks, open up a coffee shop. You know, I got to do something. There's no retirement in YouTube. There's no 401ks. And 401ks are still very much exploiting capitalism. You feel me? There's value on the individual level in being good at capitalism. That is not worthy of a revolutionary agenda. Niggas getting rich does not work. Further, even if Killer Mike of Kill Your Masters, Killer Mike was the real Killer Mike, if Killer Mike got next to Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom in 2020, and instead of saying, hey, y'all, go home, said, burn this motherfucker down, which I think is a lyric from one of his songs. Even if that was the real ethos of Black people, that we were going to use money to create a revolutionary politic agenda, it still would be logistically impossible. It wouldn't. There's not enough money out there, not enough money in the hands of Black people or unclaimed by white people or any other part of our capitalist system to say we're going to amass so much that we can dictate economic policy and political reality. That's just not realistic. I can't break it all down, but if you want to hear like the logistics of it, read the book. The short version is there ain't enough money out there. The amount of money that Black people have access to, if we pulled it all together perfectly, it wouldn't amount to anything substantial. We don't have enough collective wealth. We missed that boat. It's over. It's a wrap. So when you hear Killer Mike and Charlamagne the God and, you know, all these rich entertainment niggas use that ethos, I don't want to call it a grift outright, although the Greenwood Bank gives me bad vibes. And I'll come back to that in a sec. Actually, let me do that. So Killer Mike, in that line, he says, I started Greenwood Bank. And don't get me wrong, like I know people that got Greenwood Bank. Greenwood Bank is probably doing good things for a handful of Black folks who have access to capital, who have access to resources, that have a business idea and they can give them a business loan, etc. That is happening, right? But that is not going to change the reality for the vast majority of Black people. It's not. And the fact that Greenwood isn't a real bank, that the real bank is Coastal Banking Solutions or whatever the fuck it's called, which is a white bank, and Greenwood is just an app. Greenwood Bank is just an app. That's all it is. Essentially, it's fintech. It's an app that connects you essentially to another bank through their framework, and that means they get a cut. That means they can do some things, but it is not revolutionary. It's not kill your masters. So, going back to where I was at a second ago, when you hear Killer Mike and these other folks talk about buying Black as this revolutionary thing, you have to keep in mind that they own those things that they're asking you to buy, and that the only people truly benefiting from that at a large scale, because it's capitalism's, are the owners of the means of production, the owners of those businesses. And here's the thing, I wouldn't take issue with that outright if they didn't position it and frame it as a revolutionary political act. Tell me, yo, I'm Killer Mike, I'm rapper such and such, I'm R&B singer such and such, and I made some dope shit and I want Black people to support it. You know who I kind of fuck with? Pinky. Shout out to CAU. Right? This is Pinky Cole. Pinky Cole, no, not that Pinky. Oh, shit. My bad, y'all. Not that Pinky. Shout out to that Pinky too, but that's not the Pinky I'm talking about right now. This is the Pinky I'm talking about, Pinky Cole. AUC alumni, CAU alumni, multi-millionaire off of Slutty Vegan. Slutty Vegan is a restaurant chain that she started, last 10 or so years. It's a vegan restaurant. I've never eaten there. I'm not a huge fan of vegan food, but Pinky is really about her entrepreneurial life. And she has at times dabbled in the Black excellence aesthetic, right? The revolutionary aesthetic. But overall, Pinky's just like, yo, I'm Pinky. My shit is dope. Fuck with your girl. Pay your workers, okay? Because there's some concerns about stolen wages at one of her restaurants in New York or something. But she's not like that. She's not over directly the restaurant. She's over the brand. We'll see. Hopefully, I don't have to do I was wrong about Pinky video in 10 years. But the whole point is that she's just like, again, I'm Pinky Cole. My shit is dope. Fuck with your girl. I'm cool. That's dope. But if she was to come through and say, I'm Pinky Cole, I'm about to start the revolution. To help start the revolution, come eat at Slutty Vegan. Then I'm like, Pinky, no, you stop doing that. Stop doing that. And what you see with a lot of these Black bourgeois, talented tent folks is that they present their business venture as this, they brand it with that Black excellence aesthetic, which I think is just regressive and toxic. And they present it as political action, as revolutionary action, as radical action. When they take their capitalism and they try to wrap it in revolution, that's when we have a problem. And that's my critique of Killer Mike. Killer Mike's revolutionary bars notwithstanding, it's how he keeps trying to compare his success in capitalism to actual revolutionary action. Killer Mike, if you've seen him in interviews, is talking about how he's in the spirit of Fred Hampton. He did a interview with some like white venture capitalist dudes and was talking about how Kwame Ture was supportive of capitalism in his later years because some other kind of bullshit. I don't know. It was real bad because it's co-opting political ideologies that have already been pushed out of the mainstream media in the first place. So that's my main problem, because it's the thing that frustrates me the most, and this is also a self-report, is how radical Black political ideology and aesthetics have been so successfully co-opted over the last couple of decades, so that things that we think are radical, when you sit back and you look at their elements and their core features, you realize they're just co-opted, reclaimed elements of capitalism. That is the critique of modern cultural Pan-Africanism, of hip hop's revolutionary capacity, so on and so forth. And so we have to be more critical of that, and we have to hold accountable. Like, listen to Killer Mike all you want, but understand that what Killer Mike is talking about is not revolutionary. What Killer Mike understands, and is either being very cynical or naive with, is that for the talented Black folks, the Black folks with access, the Black folks who come from good backgrounds, that have opportunities, that benefited from mentors and have a rich uncle or a couple of educated uncles, went to the good schools, like all these things, like myself, like my children, like probably most of you, the vast majority of Black folks in the chat, the vast majority of people that watch my content. I want to be very clear. Like, I made that video with that message because I wanted it to hit a specific population of people that ain't been hit yet. All this Black excellence, Black capitalism stuff can work for us. And it still ain't gonna work for all of us. It ain't gonna work for all of us, but it's much more likely to work for us than the next Killer Mike that has Killer Mike's background. Although I don't know about Killer Mike's like actual background, because Killer Mike may have been middle class, whatever. I'm not sure. Or insert other rapper from the SWATs. So we need to understand that. And we need to keep very critical of whenever somebody tries to present that ethos without that understanding, which is what Killer Mike is doing. So I don't know who the real Killer Mike is. Because the thing that I'll give credit to, and why I don't think this is a grift, is because this is a very normal way of thinking in Black spaces. I at least from my experience and from my understanding, we've read all the books. We know the system. We have a strong racial analytical frame. We know the info on how capitalism works against us and how we can make it work for us in particular. We know these things. There's a lot of pro-Black people that I truly believe and respect in terms of their politics. In fact, one of the things, going back again to Dr. Ball, he wrote, I don't know if it's in this book or something else that he wrote, that every major Black political, almost not every, so many major Black political thought leaders that we revere has at one point in time bit the Black capitalism cookie, from Malcolm X to Martin, all of them have bit that cookie at one point in time because it makes sense. until you look at the data, until you look at the analysis of the economics of the situation. And now that we know better, and now that we have an understanding that that is not a real venue for Black progress at a massive scale, we need to be spending time and energy elsewhere. And that time and energy needs to be on actual organizing, direct engagement, dismantling capitalism, building a political apparatus that can challenge capitalism and white supremacy at its core, and not just provide a couple of spots for Negroes with good educations. You know, somebody said the only socialist rapper named known. Oh, shout out. Let me find this. I came across, if you want your radical hip hop itch scratched, man, do I have somebody for y'all? What Infinity Knives, and I think the album is called King Cobra. Okay. Yeah, that shit hit. And it hit the spot too. Right after I finished listening to Killer Mike to cleanse my palate, I popped that in. I was like, oh, the first 4 bars is like, fuck the Clintons, fuck the yeah, put it on the list. Bringing it back, hopefully full circle, because I completely lost my train of thought. I'm just trying to get across the fact that we will not LLC ourselves to liberation. And what Killer Mike is offering is essentially a distillation of that politic. And as much as I love this album, and as much as I love not just the songs like Reagan and Kill Your Masters and Put the Pressure on Them, and all the great radical music he's made, that is in one spot, and Killer Mike's actual political reality is in another. And it is what it is. You know, we have to get away from being so beholden to our media consumption in the first place. But very specifically, I just wanted to make sure, like, as we're trying to figure out what to do with Killer Mike is a centrist. He has radical inclinations and capitalist desires.